Runescape, the absolutely massive MMORPG that has been going now since 2001. That's right, it just passed the 20-year mark since its release. This unique MMO has a close place in my heart as my very first MMO that I'd ever played, rushing home from school to play when I was like 11 years old and getting scammed by some dude who promised to totally trim my armor. Welcome back to the Rage Gaming channel, my name is Hollow, and today we're obviously talking about RuneScape, and if you should consider playing it today, 20 years after its release in 2021. The short answer, yes. The long answer, absolutely yes. You might be wondering, why is it a good time to get back into RuneScape right now, or perhaps try it for the first time? Well, the thing is, the game just released on Steam last week, and with that there was an entirely new client released, so it's never been easier to jump in, and at this time the player base has also never been higher, offering an incredible free-to-play system, a ridiculously solid subscription model. There's tons of things to do in the game, and the majority of it really is brilliant. Now, while you might look at the visuals of Old School Runescape and think, wow, that looks dated, or maybe you're just surprised by the fact that you click to move instead of using WASD. Let me just slow your roll and explain just what's so special about this game and why, if you are an MMO fan, you absolutely have to try it. For the platforms, the game originally was a browser MMO, evolving into a client-based game, available on both PC and Mac, but also it recently came to mobile as well. It's genuinely solid considering the nature of the game, how it's all tick-based, how you do click to move and interact already. It actually works really well on mobile. It might be one of the few mobile games out there that isn't massive MMO, a massive RPG, that is just a solid game and isn't filled with microtransactions and predatory cash grabs. And the platforms just get better, as part of the reason we're doing this video today is because it just released on Steam last week with that new and improved client. Because if you're thinking for some reason this game's been out for years, maybe the old player base is stagnating, think again. It is massive. And while it's still one of the biggest MMOs to this date, you can actually see that it's grown over time. Since its release in 2013, the player base has tripled, if not more than that, with new players who are constantly joining alongside the old-time players who return regularly, like myself. Also, this was no doubt buffed by the new mobile players with the cross-platform where they're playing with everyone else. And props as well to the many fantastic creators out there on YouTube, Twitch, the massive community-run wikis, and the tons of serious or silly Reddits active every day. If you're considering this game and you want to know what it might cost you, it's actually really simple. You have free-to-play players and members. The members pay a monthly subscription and in turn unlock everything in the game and all future updates. You don't ever have to buy an expansion. And then you have free-to-play players who play in their own locked-off area of the map, have their own economy and set amount of content that has seen some updates from time to time. And importantly, free-to-play players play on their own servers. They can't play on the members' worlds, and you need to be on a members' world to do members stuff. So they only really interact with other free players. Free players can't use member items, so they're unaffected by the advantages of membership status other players might have. Therefore, this creates a brilliant system in which free players have hundreds or thousands of hours of content without ever being affected by the members in any negative way. While yeah, members do get the majority of the content and the new updates as they directly support the game, and where you have hundreds of hours of play in free to play, you have thousands and thousands as a member. It is insane. Now then, I should explain the two sides of RuneScape, RuneScape 3 and Old School RuneScape. At this time, there are two major versions of RuneScape to play, the ongoing and original version that's seen many major changes to its core systems, which didn't rub too well with many long-term players. That's obviously now called RuneScape 3, and then the nostalgia-filled 2007 version of RuneScape is the Old School RuneScape version. This video is specifically about Old School RuneScape because for me, that's where this game shines, and I'll explain why. While Old School RuneScape was released in 2013, based on that 2007 version, it has actually seen continuous updates to improve the game and actually add both old and new content. It isn't quite the game I played as a kid, it's honestly better. You see, every major change and new patch is decided by the player base, not just anyone, but those who have an active membership and high enough combat score. You know, people that actually play. Regularly, players will be prompted to vote in a short poll for any new updates. and only when the overwhelming majority agree something should be added is it added. It's such a simple and very effective way to prevent the devs from making the same mistakes of the past and changing the game for the worst. So yes, while Old School is still a bit of a time capsule, it's still actually progressing and actively becoming a better game. When it comes to RuneScape 3 versus Old School RuneScape, there's a lot to say when we think about where RuneScape 3 went wrong, and also where it goes right, because I do think it's still worth playing, but ultimately can't compete with the Old School style. To keep it simple though, RuneScape 3 has a more standard Western MMO version of RuneScape to play. You have hotkeys and abilities to use in combat, which entirely changes how the game was played from its original state. It has more detailed visuals, which I do personally really like, and added polish with new music and proper voice acting for many quests. These things might not sound too offensive to you until you consider the wonderful many microtransactions that were added that have been so uncomfortable for even many longtime players. To me and many others, RuneScape 3's direction made me quit playing, even though I can appreciate aspects of it. It's the RuneScape style of game, but updated with faster progression and those better visuals, which does appeal to me, but I've never been able to commit to it because the parts that I don't like, I really don't like. For me, RuneScape 3 basically lost its heart and draw, while Old School reclaimed it and then improved it. The devs kind of got a second chance to make better choices, and you know what? They did. And I think that's a big part of why Old School is so successful to this day. Now let's get into some major systems for the game, like for example, the questing, because RuneScape has one of the best and most unique questing systems I have ever played in an MMO. These aren't just generic, go kill X enemies or pick up items, go talk to this guy for me quests. These are things where you actually have to earn the right to begin them, rather than them being a basis of how you gain experience. To complete a quest, you must first meet the requirements of that quest. Some are simple, like having enough combat strength to fight enemies. Some are more complex, like specific skills. Maybe you need the agility to get by obstacles that you're going to encounter, and so on. The quests themselves are these stories that involve many characters and factions that are ongoing in a different struggle. It can be something tiny, like, hey, I need help shearing my sheep, to massive, like a plot to overthrow the current Empower King. Yeah, it really varies that hard. In every case, you're never really the chosen one. You're just kind of the person who was nearby in the right place at the right time and kind of got involved. The quests are filled with combat challenges, skill challenges, puzzle challenges, and lots of great humor and brilliant dialogue. It is really self-aware, and there's a lot of good British pop culture references that I loved when growing up and I still appreciate to this day. Your reward for these crazy journeys is often insane, massive chunks of XP for specific skills, combat ability, or more importantly, new unlocks, like say how if you do certain quests, you'll unlock the dragon weaponry, which is a major milestone for the game. Maybe you'll unlock a new region of the map, and in turn unlock new ways to skill or quest. So it forms this amazing loop in which you play to unlock quests, you go on these mad journeys, overcome great trials, and then get insane rewards. Now let's talk about the combat of RuneScape, because I think at first glance it might look simple and maybe even repetitive. To be fair, it certainly can be when you're grinding mobs over and over and basically AFKing, but in reality the equipment you use has a huge impact on your strength and output. RuneScape functions on what is called the combat triangle, a holy trinity of melee, ranged, and magic. Melee is strong against ranged types, while rangers are strong against magic types, and then magic users are strong against melee. This mostly impacts PvP, giving a relevant advantage when used correctly, but it is something to be considered in PvE too. When I'm wearing heavy plate, trying to use a bow isn't going to work so well for me, so using the correct equipment for what you're doing gives you a greater chance to be accurate and deal damage. As you can see in some of these clips that I've taken on my current free-to-play hardcore Iron Man, in melee, I'm using the best plate and heavy equipment I have to give me the best advantage. In ranged mode, I've got leather on for a lighter load and therefore easier aiming. And finally, when I'm casting magic spells, I'm wearing a suitable wizard outfit to kill these demon boys. This is the base level of the system, and as you can see, when I'm playing a ranger or mage, I can actually safe spot enemies by standing where they can't reach me. This comes into play with many big and dangerous enemies or bosses of the game. A huge aspect of RuneScape has to be skilling though. What you might might be considering professions or life skills in other games, these are the side skills that are not tied to combat. These are numerous, in fact. There's a total of 23 skills available for members right now, while 15 are up for grabs for free-to-play players, so a lot. By completing quests or repeating skill actions, you gain skill experience. Logical life skills like fishing and cooking, wood cutting and fire making, or mining or smithing are some examples of skills that are outside of combat, while there are some important and additional skills that are tied to membership, like agility, letting you sprint for longer or climb over obstacles, thieving to steal money, items and consumables, farming to grow your own crops and food, or construction to build up your own player house and then unlock very impactful benefits. But skilling in RuneScape is a major way to earn money, providing the useful resources or unlocks to other players at a price. Not only is it pretty rewarding to skill, but it's often quite interesting with different mini-games to manage, tons of perks for reaching high level skills, tied directly to many quests so that you can overcome the challenges in them. Many skills are linked to another, like how Slayer is a good example, because in that you have to hunt a number of specific monsters per task given to you. While you're fighting these monsters, you're naturally training your combat skills so they go well hand in hand. Maybe you're fishing up tons of fish and training that skill, while unlocking higher tiers of fish to eat for health. To cook these, you're going to need the right level of cooking, so I often find myself fishing and cooking at the same time to power them up and actually provide food that keeps me alive when I'm doing combat training. It's all very intertwined. PvP in RuneScape is another massive part of the game, a system and side of the game that many players are drawn to due to its intense nature, the high risk versus high reward, and arguably it's one of the highest skill things in the game. While we do have catered PvP content for new players such as Castle Wars as well as high-end players, but most of RuneScape PvP has a gambling nature associated, where you're risking your equipment or money on a stake or a fight out in the wilderness. The wilderness is this massive section of the map to the north where you need to actually cross a barrier and acknowledge that, hey, you're going where other players can kill you. It's like the Wild West, where anyone can kill you and take everything you have if you're deep enough, so that your levels are close enough to allow combat. The detail of PvP can be shallow at first glance, like much of this game really. Big numbers and whoever hits hardest wins. Maybe that seems RNG. But it's all tied to that triangle, right? Using the right weapons against the correct weaknesses. It genuinely takes skill and precision so that you maximize every game tick. It's all done super fast, and to say the least, it's very intense while you're managing your menus, prayer skills, magic abilities, and attacks all at once. Overall, it is very unique as a PvP system, owing to the fact that you're almost fighting yourself and your ability to manage all the menus, all the equipment, all the options your character has, while also thinking about what the other player is doing. Clearly in RuneScape, there's a lot of choice and there's a lot of ways to play. You just have to pick a couple main goals and just go for it based on what appeals to you. So whether you're completing every quest in the game, whether you're skilling all your non-combat professions to the max, maybe you're completing every achievement or challenge, maybe you're making money, maybe you're going hard on PvP, maybe you're like me and you're playing an Iron Man, trying to be self-sufficient out in that harsh world. There's lots of choices. You're not forced into any. Just choose what appeals to you and you'll always find an in-depth and enjoyable experience. Now let's step out of the game for a second to talk about something very important, very relevant to consider if you are going to play. Which version are you going to play? The original launcher for RuneScape was awful. It had this tiny window you'd play in, this huge chat box, UI taking up most of the screen over the actual game, and that prompted the third-party software RuneLite to bring things up to date. A full-sized game, better UI you can adjust, and tons of great information like highlighting items and interactions. It seems like Jagex has tried to make their own RuneLite client because it is very similar at its core, with important features like uncapped FPS for the first time, and other options like UI sizes, classic or updated layouts, in-depth options with display, tooltips, and well, a lot of details to manipulate to your preference. Certainly better than the original launcher, and now it's arguable that maybe you don't need RuneLite anymore, but it's still not as good as RuneLite. I mean, RuneLite's been in development for years, improving over time, and has been a staple for a long period. But ultimately, you don't have to use RuneScape through Steam. It's just nice to be able to do so. RuneLite has its advantages, but it's not absolutely needed anymore, with the new official client doing pretty well so far. Yes, RuneLite has way more information and perks to it, and I find it hard to stop using even now. But the difference is that the Steam client is, for once, competitive, and you can only assume that it'll get better as they add more while learning from RuneLite, as they already paved the way. So in conclusion then, should you return to RuneScape, or should you try it as a new player in 2021? Yeah man, this game holds up to this day, and it's more accessible than ever. Its unique questing still stands out compared to current MMOs. It's got its super relaxed grinding or skilling, the social aspects, which can be mixed up with super intense boss fights, and of course PvP. If you're someone who played the game originally, man, try it again. It doesn't just hold up, it is better than it used to be with the incredible updates we've seen. But don't be fooled into thinking the game isn't for a true new player as well. It still stands out as a fantastic MMORPG with brilliant, non-linear progression. New content doesn't ruin the old content by making it irrelevant, so therefore you're good to go anytime. If you're a new player, it's just a good idea to try it free with a free-to-play account and then learn the basics. See what you like the idea of, try doing the free quests, and then if you're eventually interested enough, you can get a membership and unlock the real game. I mean, the only reason I'm not going to go hard into RuneScape right now after checking it out with the Steam release is because I'm currently invested in Final Fantasy XIV as a new player, and RuneScape really does deserve my full attention when I'm actually ready to play it, which I can say right now with confidence, I will. I really look forward to playing it again. But there it is. I hope this video was interesting or useful. If it was, please hit like so I have more chances to make more videos like this in the future. But until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.